The flash of cameras was blinding. I stood frozen in the grand ballroom of the Vance estate, watching my stepfather being tackled to the marble floor by security guards while my mother screamed. Blood roared in my ears as my grandfather's words echoed through the microphone. Inside this envelope is not a gift, it is an indictment. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my family shattered into 1,000 pieces. That was the moment I realized the people I called mom and dad had tried to bury my grandfather alive to steal his empire. But let me back up. If you are enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more incredible true stories. Drop a comment below telling me what you would do in this situation. Your support means everything. Now let me tell you how I got here, and trust me, you will not see the ending coming. My name is Olivia Vance, though everyone calls me Liv. 3 months ago, I was a 26-year-old MBA student at Columbia, living in a Brooklyn apartment with 2 roommates, genuinely believing I had the most loving family anyone could ask for. I was normal. I was happy. I was completely oblivious to the storm gathering around me. My mother, Kate, was my hero. She raised me alone after my biological father disappeared when I was 2. I have exactly 3 memories of him: cigarette smoke, a Red Sox cap, and the apartment door slamming shut for the last time. Mom never spoke badly about him. She just worked. God, did she work. For 5 years, she waitressed during the day while I did homework in the diner's back office, then cleaned offices at night while I slept. I would wake at 3 a.m. to find her collapsed on our couch, still in her uniform, too exhausted to make it to bed. She sacrificed everything to give me what I needed, even when she had nothing for herself. When she met Rick Thorne at a networking event where she was serving hors d'oeuvres, I thought it was a fairy tale come true. She deserved one. Rick was 42, successful, charming, a senior VP at Meridian Pharmaceuticals with an Upper East Side townhouse and a smile that made you feel like the most important person alive. He looked at my mother like she hung the moon and said he admired her strength. Their whirlwind courtship was everything romantic flowers at the diner weekend trips, upstate Broadway shows. He picked me up from school in his Mercedes, bought me ice cream, asked about my day like he genuinely cared. When he proposed after 6 months, I cried happy tears. At their small, beautiful wedding in the West Village, I was 7 years old and the maid of honor in a purple dress. Rick promised to love my mother, to protect her, to give her the life she deserved. Then he turned to me and said, "Liv, I promise to be the father you deserve. Not a stepfather, just a father." I believed every word. Moving into his townhouse felt surreal. My own room with an ensuite bathroom, a kitchen with granite countertops, a washer and dryer in the actual house. Mom cried the first night. She said she was just not used to being happy. Rick encouraged her to quit both jobs to focus on enjoying life. She was hesitant at first, but he insisted. He made more than enough for all of us. I was too young to notice the red flags. How Rick always steered conversations toward my grandfather's business empire. How he casually mentioned articles about Vance Corporation, asking Mom seemingly innocent questions. How his eyes lit up whenever Grandpa Arthur was mentioned like a hunter spotting prey. My grandfather, Arthur Vance, was a legend in New York real estate circles. The son of a Philadelphia factory worker, he came to the city at 23 with $800, a used suit from Goodwill, and unshakable belief. He bought a run-down Brooklyn building with borrowed money, renovated it himself, sleeping on the lobby floor. By 35, he owned a dozen properties. By 50, Vance Corporation was managing billions. But Grandpa never forgot his roots. He established the Vance Foundation when I was a baby, dedicating millions to homeless shelters, youth programs, and community development. He said he built his empire in those neighborhoods and owed them everything. I had always been close to him. My earliest memories are Saturday mornings in his office playing with his antique chess set. He taught me the game at 4 strategy by 6. By 10, I could occasionally beat him. He said I had a mind for seeing 3 moves ahead, for understanding that sometimes you sacrifice something valuable to protect what matters most. He took me to construction sites, let me sit quietly in board meetings, talked to me about architecture and economics and responsibility. He said money was just a tool, and the measure of a person was what they chose to build with it. When Rick entered our lives, those Saturday visits became less frequent. Grandpa was busy with acquisitions, traveling for deals, not feeling well. Mom assured me he still loved me but had responsibilities. I accepted it because I trusted her completely. Why wouldn't I? She was my mom. She had never lied to me before. Meanwhile, Rick became more involved in ways that felt supportive. He helped with my math homework, came to school plays, and parent-teacher conferences, paid for private high school and my Columbia tuition. He said I was his daughter and parents support their children. Looking back, I see the pattern I was too naive to recognize. Every generous gesture, every act of fatherly love came with subtle questions about my grandfather. How is Grandpa doing? Any company changes. What did I think about the foundation? It was masterful, the way Rick pumped me for information disguised as casual conversation. Mom started working for the Vance Foundation when I was in high school. Grandpa had mentioned he needed someone to help coordinate the charitable programs, and Rick suggested Mom would be perfect. She had people skills, organizational abilities, and passion for helping others. Plus, Grandpa could trust family. Rick made it sound so logical, so perfect. Mom was hesitant, said she did not want Grandpa to think she was taking advantage. But Rick convinced her. He said Arthur was getting older and needed support from people who genuinely cared about his legacy. Mom started as a program coordinator, but she was good at the job. Really good. She secured partnerships with other organizations, streamlined operations, and expanded the foundation's reach. Within 2 years, Grandpa promoted her to Director of Operations. Within 4 years, she was Executive Director, essentially running the entire foundation. Grandpa told her he was proud of her, that she had found her calling. I was proud too. My mom, who had scrubbed office floors and served coffee to make ends meet, was now the director of a major charitable foundation. She wore designer suits, attended galas, and managed a staff of 20. She had business cards with her name embossed in gold. She had made it. I did not see what was happening beneath the surface. I did not see how Rick had positioned his wife as the gatekeeper to millions of dollars in charitable funds. I did not see how he had isolated my grandfather from other family members, from old friends, until Mom and Rick were his primary connections to the outside world. I did not see the trap being built one careful piece at a time. The years passed. I graduated from Columbia with my undergraduate degree in economics. I worked for 2 years as an analyst at a consulting firm, saved money, and decided to go back for my MBA. I wanted to work in impact investing, finding ways to generate financial returns while creating social good. Grandpa said that sounded like something worth doing. I had been living on my own since college, sharing apartments with roommates, building my independence. But when I started my MBA program last year, Rick and Mom insisted I move back home. They said it would save me money, let me focus on my studies, and they missed having me around. It sounded perfect. I could not have known I was moving into the lion's den. This past summer was when I started noticing things were off. Small things at first, the kind of things you tell yourself you are imagining because surely the people who love you are not lying to your face. It started with the phone calls. I came home from my internship one afternoon in early June and heard voices from behind the closed door of Rick's study. That was not unusual. Rick often took business calls from home, but something about the tone made me pause before heading upstairs. The voices were urgent, secretive, strained in a way I had never heard before. I stood in the hallway, my hand on the banister, telling myself I was being paranoid. But I did not move. I stood there and listened. "We are running out of time." That was Rick's voice, sharp with frustration. "The old man is getting suspicious. He asked me point blank yesterday why so many foundation checks are going to Riverside Consulting." "What did you tell him?" Mom's voice anxious. "I told him they were a vendor that coordinates with our youth programs. He seemed to accept it, but Benjamin was there, and you know that lawyer does not miss anything. Benjamin has been with Arthur for 30 years. If he starts digging, then we need to move faster. Marcus says we are almost ready. Another month, maybe 2, and we will have all the documentation we need to prove Arthur is not competent to run the company. The medical reports are being prepared. We just need one more incident that we can point to." My stomach dropped. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart pounding so hard I was afraid they would hear it. "I do not like this Rick." Mom's voice was small, scared. "He is my father. He is a stubborn old man who is going to ruin everything if we do not act." Rick's tone turned cold. "Do you want to go back to serving coffee, Kate? Do you want Liv to graduate with no family business to step into? Because that is what happens if we do not take control. Arthur will give everything to some charity or sell the company to strangers. He would not do that. He might. He has been talking about legacy, about making sure the company goes to people who share his values. What do you think that means?" "It means he is planning to cut us out. We have spent years positioning ourselves and we are not going to lose it now because you get sentimental." There was a long silence. Then Mom spoke again and her voice was different, harder, resolved. "What do you need me to do?" I crept upstairs to my room, closed the door silently, and stood in the middle of the floor, feeling like the ground had opened beneath me. This could not be real. I must have misunderstood. These were the people who raised me, who loved me, who took care of me. They could not be plotting to destroy my grandfather. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe Grandpa really was having problems, and they were just trying to help. Maybe I had heard things out of context. I spent the next week in denial, forcing myself to act normal, to smile at breakfast, to hug Mom goodnight. But I watched them differently now. And the more I watched, the more I saw. I saw how Rick would steer dinner conversations toward Grandpa's health, casually mentioning that Arthur had seemed forgetful at a recent charity event. I saw how Mom would agree, adding details about how he had repeated himself during a foundation meeting. They were building a narrative, I realized. They were creating a story of decline that did not match the sharp, focused grandfather I knew. I tried to call Grandpa directly multiple times that week. His office assistant said he was in meetings. His cell phone went to voicemail. I left messages saying I wanted to see him, that it had been too long, but heard nothing back. I started to panic. What if they had already done something? What if he was hurt or trapped or worse? On a Thursday evening in mid-June, I came home to find Mom and Rick sitting in the living room with a man I did not recognize. He was in his 50s with silver hair and an expensive suit, holding a briefcase on his lap. "Liv," Mom stood up, smiling too brightly. "Perfect timing. This is Marcus Thorne. He is an attorney who does some work for the foundation. Marcus, this is my daughter, Olivia." Marcus Thorne stood and shook my hand with a grip that was just a fraction too firm. His eyes were calculating, measuring me like I was a chess piece he was trying to figure out how to use. "Pleasure to meet you, Olivia. Your mother speaks very highly of you." "Nice to meet you too," I said, my instincts screaming that this man was dangerous. "Marcus is helping us with some estate planning matters," Rick said smoothly. "Very boring legal stuff. How was your day?" I muttered something about it being fine and excused myself. But I did not go upstairs. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water I did not want, and positioned myself where I could hear their conversation continue. As I was saying, Marcus continued, his voice pitched low. "The medical evaluation should be conducted by Dr. Reeves. He is very understanding of family situations and will document exactly what we need. Once we have 3 documented instances of incapacity or erratic behavior, along with the medical reports, the guardianship petition becomes very straightforward." "And the company?" Rick asked. "Power of attorney transfers all decision-making authority to Kate as his daughter and closest living relative. You as her spouse would naturally advise her. The board will accept the situation if presented with proper medical documentation. Most of them are just concerned with stability and returns. They will not fight a smooth transition." "What about Benjamin Carter?" Mom asked. "He has been Arthur's lawyer and friend forever. He will not just accept this." "Benjamin Carter is a shareholder attorney, not family counsel. He has no standing in guardianship proceedings. By the time he realizes what is happening, it will be done." I put my glass down carefully in the sink and went upstairs, my whole body shaking. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a conspiracy. They were planning to have my grandfather declared incompetent, to steal his company, to lock him away somewhere. And they were going to use forged medical records to do it. I sat on my bed and opened my laptop. I needed evidence. I needed proof. But most of all, I needed to warn Grandpa. I tried calling him again, voicemail. I tried his office. His assistant said he had left for the day. I tried the Vance Corporation main line and asked for James Martinez, the CFO. I had met James a few times at family events, and he seemed like a good man, but his secretary said he was traveling and would not be back until next week. I was running out of options and running out of time. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the chess lessons Grandpa taught me. Sometimes you have to sacrifice something valuable to protect what matters most. What was I willing to sacrifice to protect him? Everything, I realized. I was willing to sacrifice everything. The next morning, I skipped my summer classes and took the subway to Grandpa's Fifth Avenue apartment. The doorman knew me and let me up without calling ahead. I knocked on the door, praying he was home. He opened it himself, no assistant or staff in sight, and his face lit up when he saw me. "Liv, what a wonderful surprise." Then he looked closer. "What is wrong?" I burst into tears right there in his doorway. He pulled me inside, sat me down on his living room couch, and made me tea while I tried to pull myself together. "Tell me," he said gently, sitting beside me. So I did. I told him everything I had overheard. The conversation about Riverside Consulting and the foundation money, the discussion about having him declared incompetent, the meeting with Marcus Thorne about guardianship and power of attorney, the plan to take over his company. I watched his face as I spoke. I expected shock, anger, denial. Instead, he just looked sad and tired. "I know," he said quietly. "You know," I stared at him. "What do you mean you know?" "I have known something was wrong for about 4 months. Money has been disappearing from the foundation. Small amounts at first, a few thousand here and there that could be explained as accounting errors. But it kept happening. I asked Kate about it, and she said there were some vendors that had been paid twice by mistake, that they were working on getting refunds, but the money never came back." He stood and walked to his study, returning with a thick folder. "I hired a private investigator 6 weeks ago, a former FBI forensic accountant who specializes in financial fraud." He opened the folder and showed me page after page of documentation. Shell corporations, fake consulting firms, offshore accounts, bank transfers. Over the past 3 years, Rick and my mother had embezzled more than $12 million from the Vance Foundation. $12 million meant for homeless shelters for kids who needed after-school programs for families who needed job training. Stolen. And my mother had done it. The woman who used to work 2 jobs to make sure I had school supplies had stolen from children who had nothing. I felt physically sick. "There is more," Grandpa said grimly. He showed me another section of the folder, forged documents with his signature, medical reports from doctors he had never seen, a draft guardianship petition. "They have been planning this for at least a year, probably longer. Why have not you called the police?" I asked. "Why have not you stopped them?" "Because I needed to be sure. Because I needed ironclad evidence. And because—" He paused, and for the first time he looked old. "Because she is my daughter, Liv. Even knowing what she has done, calling the police on your own child is not easy." I took his hand. "What are you going to do?" He looked at me with eyes that had seen everything in his 73 years. Eyes that had built an empire, and now had to watch it being torn apart from inside. "I am going to stop them, publicly, decisively, in a way they cannot spin or manipulate, but I need to do it carefully." That was when he told me about his plan. The Vance Foundation held its annual Thanksgiving charity gala every year at the family estate in Westchester. It was the biggest event on the foundation's calendar, attended by hundreds of donors, business partners, politicians, and media. Rick and Mom had been planning this year's gala for months, seeing it as their moment to shine, to show off their success running the foundation. What they did not know was that Grandpa planned to turn their celebration into their reckoning. "I am going to appear at the gala," he said. "I am going to reveal everything in front of everyone. The embezzlement, the forged documents, the conspiracy. With that many witnesses, that much media coverage, they will not be able to cover it up or claim I am a confused old man. The truth will be public and permanent." "But that is months away," I protested. "What if they move first? What if Marcus files those guardianship papers? Then I will have Benjamin fight them every step of the way. But I do not think they will move yet. They still need a few more pieces in place." He looked at me seriously. "Liv, I need you to do something very difficult. I need you to act normal. Go home, live your life. Do not let them know you are aware of anything. Can you do that?" It was one of the hardest things he ever asked of me. Going back to that house, sitting across from them at dinner, pretending everything was fine, while knowing what they had done. But I did it. For 3 months, I played my part. I smiled at breakfast. I talked about my classes. I hugged Mom goodnight. I thanked Rick for his fatherly advice. And the whole time, my heart was breaking into smaller and smaller pieces. I watched Mom prepare for the gala with obsessive attention to detail. She hired the best caterers, the most prestigious florist, a famous string quartet. She bought a custom Valentino gown that cost more than some people made in a year. She had the ballroom completely redecorated. Everything had to be perfect for what she thought would be her triumph. Rick was in high spirits throughout the fall. He talked about expanding the foundation, about taking on a bigger role in Vance Corporation once Arthur stepped back. He actually said those words at dinner one night, "When your grandfather steps back." Not if when, like it was inevitable, like it was already decided. Meanwhile, Grandpa was preparing his counterstrike. He worked with Benjamin Carter to document everything. They collected financial records, recorded conversations, gathered sworn statements from foundation employees who had noticed irregularities but been silenced. They prepared criminal complaints. They obtained court orders. And Grandpa installed hidden security cameras in his office. That part happened in early November, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Grandpa called Rick in for a meeting saying he wanted to discuss some foundation expenses that seemed unusual. He did not tell Kate. He wanted to see Rick's reaction without her there to control the situation. I found out about what happened in that office from the video footage. Grandpa showed it to me 2 days later, and I watched in horror as Rick's mask finally completely dropped. The meeting started civil enough. Grandpa asked about Riverside Consulting, about several other suspicious vendors. Rick gave smooth explanations, very prepared, very reasonable. But then Grandpa said he had hired forensic accountants to track the money, and he knew exactly where it had gone. Rick stood up from his chair and his whole demeanor changed. The charming smile vanished. His voice dropped an octave. "You are going to drop this investigation," he said coldly. "You are going to sign the papers Marcus prepared transferring power of attorney to Kate. And you are going to step away from the company voluntarily." "Or what?" Grandpa asked calmly, though I could see his hands tightening on the armrests of his chair. "Or I will make sure you do not have a choice." Rick walked around the desk, standing over my grandfather in a way that was clearly meant to intimidate. "You are an old man, Arthur. You are confused. You are not thinking clearly. Everyone will understand if your loving family has to step in to protect you from yourself. Get out of my office." "No." Rick leaned down, putting his hands on the desk, his face inches from my grandfather's. "You are going to listen to me. Kate and I have worked too hard, positioned ourselves too perfectly to let you ruin this now. We are taking what we deserve, what we earned, and you are going to let us." "I built this company," Grandpa said, his voice shaking with anger. "I built this foundation. You have earned nothing. You are a parasite." That was when Rick hit him. A vicious backhand across the face that knocked my 73-year-old grandfather sideways in his chair. I watched Grandpa try to stand, and Rick shoved him back down hard enough that his head cracked against the wooden back of the chair. "You're going to a nursing home," Rick said, breathing hard, his face flushed with rage. "A nice, quiet place where you can rot while we fix the mess you made. And if you fight us, I will make sure it is the kind of place they forget to feed you. Do you understand me?" The door opened. My mother walked in. And instead of horror at seeing her husband beating her father instead of running to help him, she just stood there with her arms crossed. "Finish it, Rick," she said coldly. "We do not have time for this." Rick hit him again, this time with a closed fist that left the bruise I would see weeks later at the gala. He grabbed my grandfather by the collar and said, "Sign the papers by Monday, or I will come back and finish this. And next time there will not be any cameras to save you." They left him there, bleeding and dazed in his chair. Watching that video was the moment I stopped seeing the people who raised me as my parents. They were strangers wearing familiar faces. They were criminals, and I was going to help my grandfather take them down. The night before Thanksgiving, I got a call from an unknown number. Benjamin Carter's voice was calm and professional when I answered. "Miss Vance, your grandfather has asked me to contact you. Can you meet us tomorrow morning at 9 at his apartment? It is urgent. Do not tell anyone about this call." I met them the next morning, skipping out early, while Rick and Mom were busy with last-minute gala preparations. My grandfather looked better than I expected, though the bruises had faded to a yellowish green. Benjamin was there with multiple file boxes full of documents. "Today is the day," Grandpa said. "Tonight at the gala, we end this. But first I need to tell you something that will change your life." He explained that he was rewriting his will. More than that, he was transferring control of Vance Corporation to me immediately. 51% of voting shares would be placed in a trust with me as the beneficiary and trustee effective the moment the documents were filed with the company registrar, which would happen at exactly 7 p.m. that evening, 1 hour into the gala. "I am making you chairman of the board, Liv. I am giving you control of my company, not because you are my granddaughter, but because you are the only person I trust to protect what I built." I could not breathe. "Grandpa, I cannot. I am 26 years old. I do not know how to run a company like that." "You are smart, you are honest, and you have integrity. That is more than I can say for almost anyone else in this family." He took my hand. "I am not asking you to do this alone. James Martinez will be CEO. Benjamin will guide you. But I need someone at the top who will not sell out the company's values for personal gain. Will you do this?" I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The overheard conversations, the forged documents, the stolen millions. My mother's cold voice saying, "Finish it." The choice was not really a choice at all. "Yes," I said, "I will do it." Benjamin spent the rest of the day coaching me. What to expect at the board meeting that would follow the gala. How to vote my shares. what questions to ask, and what to say. He prepared me for battle, and I tried not to think about the fact that I would be going to war with my own mother. That evening, I got ready for the gala in my childhood bedroom, looking at myself in the mirror and barely recognizing the woman staring back. I was wearing the midnight blue gown Mom had bought me. My hair was styled perfectly. My makeup was flawless. I looked like I belonged at a high society gala. I felt like I was wearing a costume for the most important performance of my life. Downstairs, I could hear Mom directing staff, her voice high and excited. She had no idea that in a few hours, her entire world would collapse. Rick knocked on my door. "Ready, kiddo, big night tonight." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him I knew everything, that I had seen the video, that he was going to prison. Instead, I smiled. Ready. The drive to the Westchester estate took 45 minutes. Rick drove while Mom sat in the passenger seat, going over her speech one more time. She was planning to announce a major expansion of the foundation, new programs, more funding. All of it built on stolen money. I sat in the back seat and said nothing. The estate was magnificent, lit up like something from a movie. The circular driveway was lined with luminarias, and valets were parking an endless stream of luxury cars. The November air was crisp and cold, and I could see my breath as we walked up the steps to the entrance. The ballroom looked like something out of a magazine. Crystal chandeliers, white flowers everywhere, elegantly dressed guests holding champagne flutes. The string quartet played Mozart. Waitstaff circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres. Everything was perfect, just like Mom had planned. I watched her work the room for the next hour, greeting donors and thanking them for their support. She introduced Rick as her partner in the foundation's work, and he played his part perfectly, charming and gracious. They looked like the perfect power couple. No one would have guessed they were thieves. At 7:15, I saw Benjamin Carter arrive. He caught my eye across the room and gave me a small nod. The shares had been transferred. I was now officially the majority owner of Vance Corporation. My hands were shaking, so I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing tray, even though I had no intention of drinking it. I just needed something to hold. At 7:25, the main doors opened. The room went silent in waves, starting from the entrance and spreading outward. The string quartet stopped playing mid-phrase. Conversations died mid-sentence. Everyone turned to look. My grandfather walked in. He was not supposed to be there. Mom and Rick had told everyone he was too ill to attend, that he was resting under doctor's orders. But there he was, dressed in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, walking slowly with a cane flanked by 2 large security guards I did not recognize. And he was visibly injured. Even from across the room, I could see the dark bruise under his left eye, the cut on his forehead that had required stitches, the careful way he moved like his ribs hurt. The cameras started immediately, flashes going off like fireworks as society photographers captured every angle of his battered face. I heard gasps, shocked whispers, people asking what had happened. I looked at my mother. All the color had drained from her face. Rick had gone absolutely rigid beside her, his champagne glass frozen halfway to his mouth. They started moving toward Grandpa, and I saw Mom slip into character, her face transforming into an expression of shocked concern. "Dad, oh my God, what happened? Why are you here? You should be in bed." Her voice carried across the room, pitched perfectly to sound like a worried daughter. Rick joined in. "Arthur, please let us take you home. You are not well. You should not be here." Grandpa did not even look at them. He walked straight past them, moving slowly but deliberately toward the stage at the front of the ballroom. The crowd parted in front of him like he was Moses, and they were the Red Sea. The security guards stayed close to his sides, and I realized they were not just there to help him walk. They were there to protect him. Mom and Rick followed, still playing concerned family members, but I could see panic in their eyes now. Something had gone very wrong with their plan, and they did not know what to do. Grandpa climbed the 3 steps to the stage, moving carefully. He took the microphone from the stunned MC who was supposed to be introducing my mother for her speech. The ballroom held about 300 people, and every single one of them was silent, watching. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Grandpa began. His voice was steady, amplified through the sound system so everyone could hear. The Vance Foundation's annual Thanksgiving Gala is supposed to be a celebration, a time to recognize the good work we do in our communities, a time to give thanks for our blessings. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the crowd before landing on Mom and Rick, who had pushed their way to the front. "I am thankful for one thing tonight. I am thankful that I am still alive to stand here and expose the people who tried to destroy me." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Cameras flashed frantically. I saw reporters pulling out notebooks, smartphones being raised to record video. This was news, and everyone knew it. For the past 3 years, Grandpa continued, his voice gaining strength. My daughter, Kate, and her husband, Rick Thorne, have been systematically embezzling money from the Vance Foundation. Money meant for homeless shelters has been funneled into their personal accounts. Money meant for youth programs has been invested in their offshore corporations. Money meant for families who needed job training has been used to fund their lifestyle. That is a lie, Rick's voice boomed across the ballroom. He pushed forward, trying to get to the stage, but the security guards blocked his path. This man is not well, he is confused. Someone call his doctor. I have proof, Grandpa said calmly. He pulled a black envelope from his jacket pocket and held it up. Every transaction, every forged signature, every shell corporation, it is all documented. He looked directly at my mother. But theft is not all you have done, is it, Kate? Tell everyone about your plan to have me declared mentally incompetent. Tell them about the forged medical records. Tell them about your arrangement with Marcus Thorne to file guardianship papers so you could seize control of Vance Corporation. Mom was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. No, Dad, please. You do not understand. We were trying to help you. We were trying to protect the foundation. Protect it by stealing $12 million. The gasps this time were even louder. $12 million. The number echoed around the room, repeated in shocked whispers. 3 days ago, Grandpa continued, when I confronted Rick about the theft, he gave me these injuries. He gestured to his battered face. He beat me in my own office. He threatened to lock me in a nursing home where I would rot. And Kate, my own daughter, stood in the doorway and watched it happen. You are lying, Rick was screaming now, all pretense of sophistication gone. You senile old bastard, you are destroying your own family. Show them, Grandpa said to Benjamin Carter, who had moved to the back of the room where the sound system was controlled. Show everyone what really happened. A projection screen descended from the ceiling behind the stage. The lights dimmed. And then on a screen 15 feet wide, the security camera footage began to play. Every single person in that ballroom watched Rick Thorne backhand my grandfather across the face. They watched him shove a 73-year-old man back into his chair. They heard him threaten to put Arthur in a nursing home and leave him to rot. They saw my mother walk in, and they heard her say, "Finish it, Rick. We do not have time for this." The silence in that room was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. They just watched as the footage played, showing exactly what kind of people Rick and Kate really were. When it ended and the lights came back up, Rick's face was purple with rage. He charged at the stage, pushing past the security guards, and actually made it up the first 2 steps before they caught him. But he was not going for my grandfather anymore. He was coming for me. I do not know how he knew I was involved. Maybe it was the look on my face. Maybe it was that I was not surprised by anything that had happened. Maybe he just knew that Grandpa would have told me everything. "This is your fault," he screamed at me, pointing with a shaking finger while the security guards restrained him. "You ungrateful little bitch. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us." "You gave me lies," I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice was. "You gave me false promises. You gave me a childhood built on manipulation and theft." Mom had collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. But she looked up at me then, and the expression on her face was not grief. It was fury. "How could you?" she hissed. "How could you betray your own mother? I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you, and you choose him over me." "You chose Rick over me," I shot back, feeling something break loose inside me. "You chose money over me. You chose crime over me. You watched the man who beat your father, and you did nothing. So do not talk to me about sacrifice." She stood up and came at me so fast I did not have time to react. Her hand connected with my face in a slap that echoed through the sound system that was captured by 20 cameras that would be on the front page of every newspaper in New York the next morning. The world seemed to stop for a moment. My ear was ringing, my cheek burned, and I looked at this woman who had given birth to me, who had worked 2 jobs to raise me, who had become someone I did not recognize, and I felt nothing but pity. Rick broke free from one of the security guards and lunged at Grandpa again. This time they were ready. They tackled him hard, slamming him face first onto the marble floor of the stage. The sound of his body hitting the ground was sickening. He struggled beneath them, screaming obscenities, all sophistication completely shattered. "You ruined everything," he was yelling, his voice hoarse. "I worked for this. I earned this. That company should be mine. It is mine." Then the police arrived. Turned out Grandpa had coordinated with the district attorney's office, and they had been waiting outside for his signal. Officers poured into the ballroom and the gala guests pressed back against the walls, giving them space. Rick Thorne was arrested right there on the stage, handcuffed, while photographers captured every moment. The charges were read aloud: assault, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder abuse. He was still screaming as they dragged him out, making threats about lawyers and lawsuits that everyone knew were empty. Mom was not arrested at the gala, but officers informed her she needed to come to the station for questioning. She did not look at me as her lawyer arrived and escorted her out. She did not look at anyone. She just walked out of that ballroom with her head high, her expensive gown trailing behind her, and I wondered if she had any idea how much she had lost. The gala ended in chaos. Guests filed out in stunned silence or an excited conversation depending on their proximity to the drama. Reporters mobbed the front steps trying to get statements from anyone who would talk. The Vance Foundation Gala had just become the scandal of the year. Grandpa Benjamin and I retreated to the library in the east wing of the mansion, away from the cameras and chaos. The moment the door closed, I started shaking. Everything I had been holding inside for 3 months came pouring out. I sank onto a leather couch and cried like I had not cried since I was a child. Grandpa sat beside me and held my hand while I fell apart. He did not say anything. He just let me grieve for the family I thought I had, for the mother I had lost, for the innocence I could never get back. When I finally stopped crying, Benjamin handed me a glass of water and sat down across from us. "The board meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow," he said gently. "Are you ready?" I was not ready. I would never be ready, but I nodded anyway. Yes. That night, I stayed at the estate in one of the guest rooms. I could not face going back to the townhouse, back to the room I had slept in while they plotted and schemed. I was done with that place, done with that life. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's face when she slapped me. I heard Rick screaming about what he deserved. I saw the security footage playing again and again, showing me exactly what the people I loved were capable of. The next morning, Benjamin drove me into Manhattan for the board meeting. I wore a conservative navy suit, my hair pulled back, minimal makeup. I looked at myself in the car's visor mirror and tried to see a chairman of the board. All I saw was a terrified 26-year-old who had no idea what she was doing. Vance Corporation headquarters occupied 3 floors of a sleek glass tower in Midtown. I had been here before as a kid, but walking in today was different. Today I was not Arthur Vance's granddaughter. I was the majority shareholder. The boardroom was all glass and steel, with a massive table surrounded by leather chairs. When Benjamin and I walked in, 14 board members turned to look at me with expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Marcus Thorne was there, Rick's co-conspirator, the lawyer who had helped plan my grandfather's destruction. He looked confident, smug, even like he thought he could still win this battle. Benjamin called the meeting to order and explained the situation. As of 7 p.m. the previous evening, I held 51% of voting shares in Vance Corporation. I had called this emergency meeting to address recent events and vote on new corporate leadership. Marcus stood up immediately. "I object to these proceedings. Arthur Vance was clearly not of sound mind when he transferred those shares. My clients and I are filing a motion to have the transfer declared invalid based on undue influence and mental incapacity." "Your clients," I said calmly, "are currently in police custody facing criminal charges. That is irrelevant to the question of whether the share transfer was valid. Actually, it is very relevant." Benjamin opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. "Mr. Thorne, you have been disbarred as of this morning. The New York State Bar Association has revoked your license for ethics violations, including conspiracy to defraud a client. You no longer have standing to represent anyone in this matter, and you will be escorted from these premises immediately." Marcus's face went white. "What?" 2 security officers appeared at the boardroom door. "Mr. Thorne, you need to come with us." I watched Marcus Thorne being escorted out of the boardroom, still sputtering protests, still trying to maintain control of a situation that had already slipped completely through his fingers. The door closed behind him with a definitive click. The remaining board members sat in stunned silence. "Now then," Benjamin continued, "shall we address the matter at hand?" I stood up, my knees shaking but my voice steady. "I know what you're all thinking. I am 26 years old. I have an MBA in progress, but no real experience running a company. You are wondering if Arthur has made a terrible mistake, if he has put someone in charge who will destroy everything he built." I looked around the table, making eye contact with each board member. "You might be right. I might not be ready for this, but I know what I am not. I am not a thief. I am not a liar. I am not someone who will beat an old man and steal from children to enrich myself. I opened my laptop and connected it to the presentation system. Before we continue, I want you all to see something. I played the security footage. All 5 minutes of it. Rick beating my grandfather, my mother watching, the threats, the violence, everything. When it ended, several board members looked ill. One woman was crying quietly. That footage has been turned over to the district attorney, I said. It has also been provided to every major news outlet in New York. By tomorrow morning, everyone will know what Rick and Kate Thorne tried to do, and they will be watching to see how we respond. I pulled up the next slide. Arthur Vance is stepping down as CEO due to health concerns, but he will remain on the board as chairman emeritus. I am proposing that James Martinez, our current CFO, be promoted to CEO. James has been with this company for 15 years. He knows our business inside and out. He is smart, ethical, and loyal. He is the right person to lead Vance Corporation forward. I looked at the faces around the table. Some were skeptical, some were thoughtful, but they were listening. I will take the position of board chairman. I will be completing my MBA while I learn this business from the ground up. I will not make decisions unilaterally. I will listen to the experienced people in this room, but I will not stand by while anyone tries to corrupt what my grandfather built. This company will operate with integrity or it will not operate at all. The room was silent for a long moment. Then James Martinez, a 50-year-old man with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair, stood up. I have worked for Arthur Vance for 15 years, he said. He is the most honorable man I have ever known. If he believes Olivia is the right person to lead this board, then I trust his judgment. I accept the nomination for CEO. One by one, other board members spoke. Some expressed concerns about my age and experience. But after seeing the footage, after understanding what the alternative had been, they were willing to take a chance. The vote was called. 11 members voted in favor of the restructuring. Only 3 voted against. It was done. At 26 years old, with an unfinished MBA and no corporate experience, I became chairman of the board of Vance Corporation, a company that managed billions in assets and employed thousands of people. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt exhausted. The next few months were the hardest of my life. The story exploded across every newspaper and news website in the country. Thanksgiving betrayal, daughter embezzles millions, while husband beats elderly father was one headline. Heiress exposes family plot to steal empire was another. They were calling it the scandal of the decade. Rick went to trial in March. I had to testify against him. I sat in that witness stand for 3 days answering questions about what I had overheard, what I had seen, what I knew. Rick stared at me the entire time with pure hatred in his eyes. The man who had paid for my education, who had helped me with my homework, who had called me his daughter, looked at me like he wanted me dead. He was convicted on all charges. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison. I felt nothing when the verdict was read. No relief, no satisfaction, just emptiness. Mom's trial was separate a month later. She had initially tried to claim she was a victim too, that Rick had manipulated her, but the security footage made that defense impossible. Everyone had seen her stand there and tell him to finish it. Everyone had heard her cold, calculated voice. She got 12 years with possibility of parole after 8. When the sentence was announced, she finally looked at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I tried to find something in her expression, some hint of the mother who had made me pancakes and braided my hair, but she was gone. This woman was a stranger. Marcus Thorne got 7 years for conspiracy and fraud. The 3 of them were sent to different federal facilities, but the damage they had done to the Vance name, to the foundation, to the family, would last much longer than any prison sentence. Running Vance Corporation was a crash course in corporate leadership. I spent 12-hour days shadowing James, attending meetings, reviewing contracts, learning about market trends and investment strategies. I made mistakes. I asked stupid questions. I had to be corrected more times than I could count. But slowly, painfully, I learned. I also started therapy. I found a psychologist who specialized in family trauma and emotional abuse. Talking about my mother, about the betrayal, about the guilt I felt for having them arrested was excruciating at first. But my therapist helped me understand that loving someone and holding them accountable are not contradictory. She helped me see that I had not destroyed my family. My mother and Rick had done that themselves. I had just refused to be complicit in their crimes. That did not make it hurt any less. Some nights, I still woke up crying, dreaming about the mother I used to have, the one who worked 2 jobs and made sure I had everything I needed. I grieved for her like she had died, because in a way she had. The woman in prison was someone else entirely. The Vance Foundation had to be completely restructured. We brought in an independent board, hired new leadership, implemented strict financial controls, and worked to rebuild trust with our partner organizations. It took months to audit the damage to trace where all the stolen money had gone. Much of it was never recovered. Families in need had suffered because of my mother's greed, and no amount of apology could fix that. But we tried, we rebuilt, we moved forward. A year after that devastating Thanksgiving, I organized a small private dinner. Not a gala, not a performance, just a real meal with real people I trusted. My grandfather was there looking frailer than before, but with peace in his eyes. Benjamin Carter came with his wife. James Martinez and his wife joined us. A few other executives who had supported me through the chaos were there too. And I invited 3 former Vance Foundation employees who had been fired by my mother after they questioned suspicious expenses. They had tried to blow the whistle and they had paid the price. I wanted to honor that. We gathered in a private dining room at a restaurant, nothing fancy, nothing showy, just good food and honest conversation. The kind of Thanksgiving that meant something. Before we ate, Grandpa raised his glass. I want to thank all of you for standing with us through this hell. A year ago, I thought I had lost my family. I thought everything I built would be torn apart by greed and betrayal. He looked at me with eyes that were bright with tears. But I was wrong. I did not lose my family. I found it. Family is not about blood or DNA. It is about the people who stand beside you when everything falls apart. It is about integrity and loyalty and choosing to do the right thing even when it costs you everything. I raised my own glass, my throat tight with emotion. To the family we choose. To loyalty, to integrity, and to rebuilding something better from the ashes. We toasted and ate and talked late into the night. For the first time in a year, I felt something like happiness. Later, after everyone had left, Grandpa and I stood outside the restaurant waiting for our cars. Snow was beginning to fall, dusting the city streets with white. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "What you had to do?" I thought about the question, really thought about it. Did I regret exposing my mother? Did I regret sending her to prison? Did I regret taking on responsibilities I had never wanted? I regret that it was necessary, I said finally. I regret what they became. I regret that I could not save her from herself. But no, I do not regret telling the truth. I do not regret choosing what was right over what was comfortable. He squeezed my hand. You are stronger than I ever was at your age. Stronger than I am now. Vance Corporation is in good hands. More importantly, its values are in good hands. The car arrived to take us back to the estate. As we drove through the snow-covered streets, I looked out the window at the city lights and thought about everything that had changed in a year. I had lost my mother. I had lost the man I thought was my father. I had lost the innocent belief that family meant safety and love and protection. But I had gained something too. Self-respect, integrity, the knowledge that I could face the worst betrayal imaginable and not break. That I could stand up to people I loved when they were wrong, even knowing it would cost me everything. I was the chairman of Vance Corporation now. I ran a company worth billions, made decisions that affected thousands of employees, managed investments and acquisitions and corporate strategy. But that was not my real inheritance. My real inheritance was the choice my grandfather gave me that day in his apartment. The choice between complicity and courage, between enabling evil or exposing it, between protecting my comfort or protecting what was right. I chose right, and that choice defined me more than any title or wealth ever could. My mother will be eligible for parole in 7 years. I do not know if I will visit her before then. I do not know if I will ever be able to forgive what she did. Some days I think I might. Some days the thought of seeing her makes me physically ill. But I know this, I will not let her choices define me. I will not let her betrayal poison the rest of my life. I will build something good with what I inherited, something my grandfather would be proud of, something that helps people instead of hurting them. The Vance legacy is not about money. It is not about power. It is about having the courage to rebuild when everything falls apart. It is about choosing integrity over convenience, truth over comfort, right over easy. And that is a legacy worth inheriting. So here is what I learned from all of this. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who hurt us most. Sometimes doing the right thing means losing everything we thought we needed. And sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we were born into. Trust is earned, not given, and blood does not excuse betrayal. Love without respect is manipulation. Sacrifice without reciprocity is exploitation. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people you love because staying would destroy you. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between loyalty to family and doing what is right? How did you handle it? What would you do if you discovered your parents were not who you thought they were? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone in your own struggles, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories of courage and survival. Your support helps me share these important stories with the world. Thank you for listening.